Triad begins by showing a gang of gangsters at a funeral. A group of gangsters named Triad appear to salute a tombstone at the cemetery. Then the scene changes to show a man with the appearance of a nerd named William. William came to a busy market to help his mother sell oranges. After asking his mother to rest while he replaced selling the oranges, suddenly a group of thugs came who immediately destroyed his mother's merchandise. The thugs were apparently sent to collect William's mother's debt. But because at that time the mother did not have the money to pay, they were abuzz, destroying his merchandise and beating William. On the other hand, two men named Derek and Edward saw William being beaten by thugs. The two men who are close friends of William try to help him, but they are overwhelmed by the thugs. For that, Derek then calls his older brother, Patrick, who is a gangster, to ask for help. Patrick came and bullied the thugs into stopping beating and harassing William's mother. The thugs, knowing Patrick is a member of the city's most feared gangsters, finally back off and leave. In the evening, William, Derek, Edward, and Patrick eat and drink together. William thanked Patrick for helping him. He also begs Patrick to let him join his gangster group, which turns out to be the Triads. William said he wanted to be a Triad member like him so he wouldn't be a burden to his mother. Initially, Patrick refused because William's appearance was far from the appearance of a gangster. He even suggested that William study diligently and earn a lot of money to protect his mother. However, because William keeps begging and Patrick finds out that William is a smart person, he finally accepts William, Derek, and Edward to join the Triad. After that, William, Derek, and Edward go through a series of rituals to officially join the Triad gangsters. A little reference: Triad is a gangster group engaged in debt collection. The gang was founded and is currently led by a middle-aged man named Moon. In the alley, Patrick has the position of commander-in-chief as well as a confidant of the chairman. Even so, he wasn't actually his only confidant. Moon had enough members that he trusted and made accomplices. Time flies, and long story short, Edward, William, and Derek start to enjoy their new roles as gangster members. One night they spent time drinking in a nightclub. That's when Edward met a beautiful woman named Kathy who looked staggered. At first, Edward thought Kathy was drunk from drinking too much, although he finally realized that someone had mixed drugs in Kathy's drink. It didn't take Edward long to learn that a man named Prince Kong had mixed the drug into Kathy's drink. He then confronted Kong about it, but Kong instead told him not to interfere. Derek, who saw Edward and Kong's feud, was furious and without thinking, he hit Kong on the head with a bottle. Unbeknownst to them, Kong is actually the son of Cheung Sing, a rival gangster group Triad leader. Knowing that his son was hit by someone in a nightclub, Cheung Sing does not accept it and mobilizes all members of the gangster group to look for Derek. The incident also reached Moon, who then ordered Patrick to solve the problem so as not to damage the reputation of the Triad gangsters. Then Patrick immediately met Derek, Edward, and William and decided to temporarily evacuate Derek to Taiwan. Edward and William had little choice but to watch their best friend go alone to Taiwan by ship. After successfully evacuating Derek, Patrick finds Cheung Sing and Kong, who have injuries to their heads. Patrick intended to discuss the matter and at the same time, he arranged the meeting as an offer of peace. The problem was successfully resolved peacefully without a fight between the two gangs. Time passed and 2 years later, William already had experience as a gangster. At that time, William's mother had died and he had successfully graduated as a scholar. His appearance also changed, no longer like a nerd but already looked so handsome. William continued to train until he became a boxing athlete. Meanwhile, Edward is also married to Kathy while Derek was working in Taiwan. Long story short, Derek returned from Taiwan and reunited with his two friends, Patrick and Moon, who already consider the three friends to be members of the Triad. Celebrate Derek's return by having dinner and drinks together at a nightclub. The scene then moves to the night of the next day. William meets his old school friend, Bobby, who invites him to meet a guy. The man turned out to be Mr. Wong, the owner of the Bank Mo who is experiencing credit jams. Mr. Wong intends to give William a job to collect bad debts from some of their customers. Later, William will get a reward of 50% of the money he managed to collect. Mr. Wong also offered William an upfront fee if he agreed to take the job. After agreeing to the offer, the next day William came to see Patrick. He assured William he didn't need his permission to do such odd jobs, even though Patrick warned William not to defect or betray while doing his job. Long story short, William apparently managed to collect debts from the customer of Mr. Wong. William's excellent work satisfied Mr. Wong, and he introduced him to his friend Mr. Ho, a wealthy conglomerate. While they were chatting together at the nightclub, William saw his girlfriend, Michelle, having an argument with another woman. William then approached Michelle and found she was having an argument with Irene, who is a member of the Triads on the same level as Patrick. Realizing this, William immediately apologized for Michelle to Irene. Unfortunately, Irene doesn't want to forgive Michelle, who apparently has thrown a drink on her shirt. Finally, William volunteered to replace Michelle to be beaten by Irene's men. After being satisfied to see William beaten to a pulp, Irene warns William that this is the first warning for him not to fight his own gang for someone else's sake. Michelle takes William out of the nightclub to treat him. When he was outside, William explained that the woman was Irene. It was also revealed that Michelle is the daughter of Mr. Wong. The incident apparently made the feelings between Michelle and William grow, so they kissed. The next day, Irene goes to Patrick to tell him what happened at the nightclub last night. Fortunately, Patrick understands William's actions and tells Irene that William's actions at that time were because he was still young. Irene finally agreed and didn't mind it any further. On the other hand, William, Derek, and Edward did an excellent job collecting the debt of Mr. Wong. They also have a lot of money and use it to have fun and buy various luxury goods. Their work for Mr. Wong no longer only collects bad credit debts from merchants but also from other customers who are classified as rich people. Of course, this makes their income grow very much. Time passed and one night, William asked Michelle out on a date at a restaurant. At that time they met Michelle's friends, who were the children of the rich. Although William has a lot of money, Michelle's friends apparently despised his job as a debt collector. So William was offended and left the restaurant. Michelle followed William, and when they were outside the restaurant, they had a big fight. While they were arguing, suddenly a car pulled up near them and 3 men got out of the car and immediately arrested William. Then, as quickly as their eyes immediately took William away by car. Michelle panicked, knowing William was kidnapped right in front of her eyes. She immediately called Derek to ask for help. On the other hand, it was revealed that the one who kidnapped William was a commander in the Triad gang named Ming. Ming seemed to be jealous of William, who had been Moon's favorite since joining the Triads. He was annoyed that William got a lot of work from Moon. When he was kidnapped, Ming and his men beat William to death. Luckily, not long after that, Patrick arrived and it didn't take long to free William. The incident apparently not only injured William physically but also his pride. He felt devastated because even though he already had a lot of money and joined a famous gangster, there were still people who looked down on him. Patrick notices William's plight and orders Derek and Edward to leave him so he can calm down. At home, a new determination grew in William. He vowed to become a stronger and more violent person so that no one would dare to humiliate him again. For that, in the following days, he spent time practicing as hard as possible. His busy schedule for training kept him away from Michelle, who spent most of her time alone thinking about her boyfriend. At the same time, on the other hand, Mun called Ming to come face to face and reprimand him because the actions of him and his men when they beat William were outrageous. But the reprimand actually made Ming furious until he finally decided to get out of the Triad gang. Then right at night, Ming and his men rioted in the Triad territory. Knowing Ming's actions, Mun gathered all the Triad commanders and asked them to solve the problem. Finally, Patrick volunteered and promised to get over it soon. After the meeting, Patrick meets Irene, who is apparently Ming's wife. Patrick asks Irene to warn her husband to stop, but Irene refuses. Instead, Irene ordered her men to add troops to protect Ming. Finally, Patrick takes another step by sending William, Derek, and Edward to look for Ming. He ordered them to bring Ming to him alive. The 3 friends immediately carried out Patrick's orders. And in the evening, they came to the place where Ming's men were gathering and immediately attacked them. Fighting action ensues and William manages to catch up to Ming, who runs away. Unfortunately, when he beat Ming, William became increasingly violent until Ming was killed. Edward and Derek, who saw William kill Ming, panicked and they ran away together from that place. Unexpectedly, the incident that night made Moon promote William, Derek, and Edward's position in the Triad gang. After that, the next day, the 3 of them, together with their subordinates, came to Ming's funeral to pay their last respects. Ming's death grew a feeling of vengeance in Irene's heart. Throughout the funeral, Irene refused to look at William and his friends. On the other hand, Irene insists to Patrick that she will do whatever it takes to get revenge and seek justice for Ming's death. Time changes until Edward invites William to come to a party one night. There, William met Michelle, and their love affair was heating up again. In the year of 2006, William and his men had changed strategies in completing their work as debt collectors. William's group is even more successful because their collection service users have reached billionaires and other important figures. Meanwhile, at another time, Moon gathers all the top Triad gangsters to announce plans to appoint a new leader as his successor, because Moon will only be the head of the Triad for the next 2 months. Hearing this, Irene nominates one of her subordinates and protege, named Kin. After the meeting, William secretly went to Patrick for help because he wanted a Triad leader position. William reasoned, since Ming's death, Irene has kept a grudge against him. So he was afraid that if Irene's subordinates became the leader of the Triads, then she would have a way to bring down William and his group. The rivalry between William and Kin begins. Most of the Triad members apparently favored William to become chairman. Meanwhile, Kin has the support of Irene, who is considered a prominent figure in the alley. Although actually Irene also has her own obstacles because the other commanders in the gang do not support her move to nominate Kin as chairman. The many obstacles made Irene order Kin to kill William so that Kin could immediately become the leader of the Triad. A few days later, William and Edward were walking home when suddenly a group of men carrying swords attacked them. Edward and William struggle to fight those who use sharp weapons. In the end, Edward tries to save William and locks him behind an iron railing to save his life. Meanwhile, Edward bravely resisted attacks from the gang of men until he finally died horribly. Edward's death brought great sadness to William and Kathy, Edward's wife. Not only that, but Derek also blamed William for rashly killing Ming at that time. Not to mention William's current desire to become the leader of the Triads, which increasingly puts their lives in danger. In the end, Derek, who was overcome with anger, breaks the ties of brotherhood with William. Edward's death also makes other Triad commanders suspect Kin, although Irene praises his actions. Irene then confirms to Kin that killing Edward is not enough to avenge Ming's death. Irene's words unexpectedly made Kin angry. He felt that Irene was just using him for revenge. Kin then asked Irene not to bother him with the various problems he had. On the other hand, Edward's death makes Michelle decide to take William to America. Michelle proposes to William so they can get married, but William instead asks for time to think about the proposal. The following days, William asked Patrick's permission to do a job for Mr. Ho. When William is meeting with Mr. Ho, Patrick is secretly trying to save the life of William, who he knows is being threatened by Irene. With the help of Derek, Patrick manages to get the license plate of the car that will be used to harm William. He rushed to find the car to save William, but another unexpected action happened instead. The car was apparently not on its way to kill William. Instead, they are after Kin. Sure enough, the delinquents who were in the car immediately slashed their swords and killed Kin. Knowing this, Patrick and Derek go out to eat and are happy that Kin is dead. This meant that William would be able to become the leader of the Triads without any obstacles. It's just that when Patrick and Derek had relaxed, William, who at that time was giving an answer to Michelle's proposal, was attacked by another gang of delinquents. It turns out that William is still being targeted and they are trying to chase after him, who fled with Michelle. In the end, when William tried to save Michelle, he was caught by the mob and slashed to death with a sword. Michelle, who saw this, immediately ran to hug William, which was covered in blood, while the attackers fled. William died in Michelle's arms. News of William's death reached Derek and Patrick, who was still eating together. Both of them immediately felt devastated and so sad. On the other hand, it is revealed that the mastermind behind Kin and William's murder is none other than Moon. Moon apparently intends to confuse those who intend to replace his position as chairman, and he intends to make Irene a scapegoat for the killing of Kin and William. The end of the Triad shows the killer of William and Kin, who apparently is a man with the appearance of a nerd. Not much different from William in the past. Several flashback scenes also show how the man has admiration for powerful gangster figures such as Ming, William, and Kin. The moral that can be learned from this movie is not to judge someone by their appearance. Even a person with a nerd appearance can become a very violent and dangerous person if he has strong intentions.